Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you another complicated checkmate in 2 problem where it is white to move and checkmate black in exactly 2 moves. Take a look at this position. It is quite chaotic. You have all these white pieces scattered all over the board. Right now, your rook is under attack by this king. Your pawn is going up the board. Their pawn is going down the board, so your rook is being threatened that way as well. And you have to find the only way to checkmate black in exactly 2 moves. It looks pretty complicated, but if you sit in here for a while, you might be able to figure it out. While you're thinking about this, let me quickly encourage you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Half of the income that I earn in this channel goes directly to charity, so if you like helping people and you like playing chess, this is the channel for you. Okay, let's get started here. So maybe a couple of quick thoughts is, you'd love to play a move like knight f7, but they would take your rook, right? So kind of things like that where you say, hey, if I could get a knight here, that covers one of the out squares, but it doesn't cover that one, so this is not going to be mate in 2 because there's no good check, right? They just take it. So you might say, okay, well, perhaps I need to support this rook somehow. So maybe I play a move like bishop here. Like if they take me, maybe I have some fancy move. There is no fancy move. That's the beauty of these puzzles, is the calculation aspect of them. So in this position, there's no good move. It's mate in 4, but there's nothing to really do. So maybe you start thinking just brute force sacrifice. Maybe queen or rook takes f5. This is going to work, but it's not going to be mate in 2. After g takes f5, the queen can take. And then after king d6, now this nice move, this nice knight move, comes in handy because there's no rook to be captured. And as a bonus to you, find the mate after queen takes in this position. Queen takes is going to be mate in 3, and it's very similar. Can you find it? So I will leave that to you. So you start looking at this and going, I don't really see what I have to do. Maybe I have to make a quiet move. Maybe something like queen c4. Is a move that I thought. Something that kind of blocks the king in and makes a threat. Now, what is the threat? I'm not really sure. Maybe this kind of move again? But not really, right? So you kind of have to realize, what am I doing by making this move? What is the threat? I'm not threatening c7 because the knight can just take me. And these are the kinds of thoughts that kind of pop in and out of your head as you're trying to solve the puzzle. And one thing that I kept thinking about, if I made a quiet move, something like, I don't know, queen d1, just as an example. My rook is always hanging. That's one problem. The next problem is, if I want to try to set something up on d4, the knight is always covering this square. And I was like, okay, that's annoying. So I have to sit here and think about, how can I make a move that does something about this rook, but also can somehow influence this d4 square? And there are a few things you can do. Like I was mentioning, you can play the bishop, you can try to take something. Well, I realized something as well, which is, what about this knight playing here? But if this bishop wasn't able to capture, like a pin, like if this king was here, for example, this would be mate. Right? Do you see what I'm getting at? I know it's hard to see because I'm putting the piece over. But if this king was on f6, that would be mate, because the knight guards these two, and the bishop would be pinned. Let's use red. So, okay, maybe you see where I'm going with this. So it would be nice if I can keep this king getting here, and I can use that knight. So that's kind of an initial thought. And as you keep playing with these thoughts, you eventually mess with some squares and you find the right answer. And the right answer in this case, I'll share with you in just one more second. If you want to pause, please be sure to pause now. If not, you're going to see the answer. Okay, the winning move, the only mate in 2, is the very simple queen move, queen f2. Now, what is this doing? Well, it kind of goes with the idea I was just mentioning. If you take my rook, I finally have a defense for that. I finally can go knight takes g4, and that is checkmate because you just walked into a pin. Okay, so that's a nice way to defend it, but of course they don't have to take the rook. Well, I mentioned this d4 square. So if ever there's a knight move, now I can just capture that d4 square right away, or that d4 knight, and I can mate you. And now I'm guarding my rook, through the king. Pretty sweet, right? So you might say, okay, but there are so many options here for black. What if I just move the king to d6? The king can just run away. Well, that's correct that they can run away, but not for long, because the only reason this knight move wasn't mate was because you could take my rook. But now you've left my rook alone, which means knight f7 is mate on the spot. Okay, so what else is there? Well, if you move the bishop, just put it on c2, for example, now this rook is defended. Knight takes f7, mate. Isn't this cool? So every single thing gives up something. And this is true in so many chess positions. If they move this bishop off of this square, what is that going to do? That's going to give me sight of this rook through my queen, and that's going to be mate on f7. So you immediately rule out this. Okay, I can't move this bishop. Okay. And then you say, okay, king moves. I can't go here. Can't go here. I can't go here. If I were to take this rook, I get mated. I just mentioned that. I'll show it again if you want me to show it again. But that's a very nice checkmate. And if you run away, it's not any better. So then you might say, what about if I put the knight right in the front? Well, the reason why I put this queen here was to support this little bishop-queen battery, and I can play bishop d4, and that is mate, similar to me just taking your knight if you were to go to d4 itself. So it's kind of incredible how these puzzles work together. It's just kind of fancy. I think I want to show one more variation. What if you take my rook? What do? You have a guess? You should be able to find it. Now, this pawn is blocking the king's out square, so knight f7 is mate. Super cool, right? There are lots of variations. There are a lot of ways you can go right, only a few ways you can go wrong. If you want, let me go back to show you that queen sacrifice. So if you wanted to take the extra puzzle on, the way to win here is queen takes bishop, and if the pawn takes, what do? Your rook is hanging. Be careful. Rook takes f5, and after the king plays a d6, you have this nice knight. Actually, you can pick. Knight e4 mate, knight f7 mate. Which one is cooler? Maybe knight e4 mate's cooler. Right in the middle of the board. So yeah, there are a couple cool positions here, a lot of fancy mates. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe and all that great stuff. Thank you so much, and until next time, bye.